Hey guys, welcome to Herbie's Reef. Today we're going to do that equipment video we've been talking about. So while we talk for a little bit, we're going to just show you some of the reef and what it's looking like right now. And we need to do a tank update also. We'll try to get that out soon. But as far as the equipment goes, I have to give you this warning that I know some of you reefers are very OCD about cable management, and I am not. I had my cables. My daughter says this is a lie, but I believe it to be true. I had them where they actually looked pretty decent for a little while, and then a pump died, and I had to cut all the zip ties, and I thought, this is stupid. I'm not going to re-zip tie this every single time something changes out. So now it just looks like a rat's nest behind the wall. Not too bad, but it's definitely not like you guys can get it. I don't know how y'all do it. I do not have your skills. But to start out with, we have switched recently to these Tunzi pumps. When BRS put those on sale over the holidays, we went ahead and picked up a few. And we had gyres in here and there. I love the gyres for an SPS tank, but I don't think anything makes the LPS dance like a Tunzi pump does. You can just see the way these torches flow and jump around. And I don't know, the gyre tended to give them a constant thrashing more than it did make them pulsate. So we've really enjoyed that change, and that's it for flow. Then as far as lighting goes, I have this Aquatic Life hybrid fixture, and we went ahead and got the extension brackets on the top that allow you to put the radions front to back instead of sideways. We did that when it was a SPS tank, and I've just left it that way since it matches I've already ran the wires through the wall and all of that, so I just went ahead and left it. And then we've got two radions over this tank. I moved a lot of the radions off once we moved the SPS, because these obviously don't need that much light. And then I have a prime in the middle just because that area doesn't have as much light as the rest of the tank. So two radions. And then I have an auto feeder up there, the Neptune auto feeder. I don't use it all the time, but when we go on vacation and stuff, it just drops the food in for the fish. Then here comes the mess in the sump, but I'm running a trigger sump, and I took out the filter socks, and instead of the filter socks, I just run a filter pad here. These are actually called Pinky pads. You can get them at pinkypad.com. Anyways, I found him from one of the other YouTubers mentioned it, but they're extremely economical. I mean, and they come in these huge rolls, and I just cut them up, and I change it out about every day. But I had tried one of those clear filter rollers that go in the filter sock area, and for my sump, they just didn't fit well, and it would get stuck, and it didn't work well. And I thought, these cost so much more than just putting a pad in here and changing it out. And it's really pretty easy, and it gets me away from the filter socks. So that's what we do for that part. And then in this next chamber, I've got live rock in the bottom, and then I have this PVC stand that I put my algae scrubber on. The algae scrubber probably does the majority of my nutrient removal, but I do go ahead and run some Chaeto in the middle section, and you can also see I've got some hair algae growing in there. So, but it is a good bit of Chaeto underneath the hair algae. And then I've got the Kessel light for that. And then as far as lines go, this one is my kalkwasser coming in. I keep kalkwasser running just to help with my pH from the calcium reactor. And then this one's my calcium reactor line, and I know that looks silly, but it keeps it from making a splashing noise every time it drips. And then I've got a manifold I've got two separate pumps. I've got a Core 20 that runs one side of the return, and all of these manifolds, it'll runs water through my chiller, my UV, my media, and my skimmer. And then I've got another one that's just a Jabo, and it goes up to the other return and to the frag tank. And then I've got two UV sterilizers. They're both 25 watts. I had one left over from the previous tank, and then I wanted to make it larger, so I just ran them in a series and did two 25s instead of a 50. If I had it to do over, I'd probably drill the back of the tank when I was starting it and run it in and out of, like I'd run directly out of the tank through a sterilizer and then back into the tank, because that's much better for the UV, for the dinos when you get them. And I just feel like it works better that way. That's what I always have to end up doing. I have a Jabo UV that I put on every time I get dinos, but luckily right now we are dino free. So that's it for this side of the tank. behind the wall is the fish room, and that's where the real mess is, but we'll take you back there and show you what we've got going on. Okay guys, here we are on the other side of the wall, and we're going to leave the filter on just for a second, and I'll show you the frag tank. This is where all the SPS are, and they're really doing quite well now. They have exploded in growth. They're so, they've gotten much happier finally, because I think I finally got all the bad things out of the water. You can see that some of them I'm still struggling with some algae spots on them, but they're healing up and gradually overcoming all of that. I need to sell a bunch of these because it's just, I don't have any room left. But you can see it's doing pretty well. A little bit of an algae problem. I need to get some more cleanup crew, and this is not an ideal tank for a frag tank, because when I buy a lot of the cleanup crew, it just can't get up there onto the frag rack to clean. Ideally, I need to probably get like a low boy or something like that that will be a little lower. And then for lighting, I've got 2 retrofit T5s on here and then 2 Radions. And I keep the Radions at AB+ and pretty well blasting full power to it. It's got a power of about 350. Where you can see the home wrecker. We finally got a new home wrecker. I'll show you a picture of that one. When it was new, it's kind of mad because we switched its tank, but it was colored so beautiful when we first purchased it. But right where that one is, it's about 300 to 350 par, and the Palmer's Blue Millie, it's right about the same there. And then if you go to the middle where the Pink Floyd is, nope. That's not the Pink Floyd. Emily's my camera lady today, and I'm going to have to help her. There's the Pink Floyd right there. That one is probably around 200 par. Maybe it's a little higher. I can't remember for sure. Anyhow, so they're doing quite well. And then as far as equipment goes, if you'll back up, Emily, this is a vat full of Kalkwasser, and I have that running through one of the new Versa pumps right here. And then I have the calcium reactor running through the other Versa pump. And I had a Masterflex pump, which I've put on eBay, and not a single person has shown any interest in it. I guess because these are so easy to get now. But the Versa for me is a better option just because it's smaller. So it leaves me a little more room in here to put other equipment. And then I've got just my Apex system, and I just run an Apex Classic. I have a dose, although right now I'm not dosing anything through it. And then I have a big skimmer that I run externally like that. I would probably never buy another skimmer, but until this one dies, I'll go ahead and run it. But it's just really loud, and I don't care for that skimmer very much. It's cheaply made. So next time I'll get either a Reef Octopus or something like that. And then that drains into this is a Vast Marine Davy Jones skimmate locker. And if it gets too high, then it'll shut the skimmer off. And then I have my skimmer recirculating air. This is a recirculating line, so that it pulls air out of the top of the skimmer, goes through CO2 media, and then that goes down to the bottom where the air intake is. And I found before I used the recirculating style, I would go through that thing worth of media about every 3 days to maybe a week, and now I get about 2 weeks out of it. So that's been a really good improvement for me, and it definitely makes my pH jump. Between that and the Kalkwasser, I without either of those, I tend to run as low as like 7.7 at night, and luckily now it hardly ever goes below 8. And then the last, well, not the last thing, but this is the RODI system and the auto water change. So I have the Genesis Reef auto water changer. So over here, this one is RODI water, and then this one is salt water. And you've got one bucket that comes from the fresh, so it fills a gallon up with fresh salt water, and then this one is tank water. So they'll both fill at the same time. This is an overflow, so once it reaches the top where the float is, it'll overflow just a little bit through this tube and back into here, and the sump has the same thing. It goes back into the sump, and then the drain line goes to a drain we have behind that wall, and then the clean water line goes back to the sump. So I'll cycle this once and just show you guys how how that works. And it does, right now I've got it set to change 5 gallons a day. So you can see the water starting to go in, and it takes it right around a minute. We may have to speed this up on the video and show you kind of the end portion, but it's going to fill for right around a minute. I slowed, you can see here I've got this little valve on my auto top off because I have a Toonsy auto top off, and that just makes the top off trickle in, because anytime while it's filling this gallon up, of course it turns my auto top off on, and before I was having trouble with it overfilling the tank, but now it fills so slowly it's not a big deal. And the great majority of my top off water is Kalkwasser anyways. I'm putting about 5 liters of Kalkwasser in a day, so it hardly needs any other top off from that. So you can see it just went overflowed. That means there's exactly a gallon in each of those buckets, and then in a minute you'll hear it click, and it'll send one side to the drain and the other side to the tank. So, and that's it. It does that 5 times a day. I can set it up to do it all in a row or daily or throughout the 24-hour period. Sometimes if I want to do like 20-gallon water change, I'll just set it up to do a continuous 20 gallons, and it'll one after the other do that. As far as RODI goes, I've got a booster pump, and then I have, you can see the top filter is my sediment filter, and then below that I put 2 carbon filters followed by the 2 DI cartridges, and then I put a color changing DI resin at the end just in case, so that I can see if that color is changing. Even though I've got TDS monitors, if that color changes, I know that I'm missing something. So I think that's it as far as the top off and the water change system goes. The last thing I've got, here's my Alkatronic. It measures my alkalinity every 4 hours minimum. Sometimes if anything is off, it'll measure it 2 hours later, and then it can dose. This is a bottle full of alkalinity soda ash, and it'll dose that if it's low. If it's high, it normally will shut off. It's got a Bluetooth plug. It'll normally shut off my peristaltic pump so that my calcium reactor doesn't dose anymore until it comes back down, but I've got mine dialed in pretty well, and I'm not running that right now. And then in the middle, you can see it's just got, the way it works is it pumps the water in there, and it's got one line that adds the reagent until the pH changes on the, you can see the pH monitor, and it keeps adding it, and it can calculate the alkalinity off of that. And I have found it to be exactly, once you get it calibrated and set up, it's exactly matches my Salifert test. So I think that's it as far as equipment goes. If you guys have any questions about any of this, or you want something to find out something in more detail, let me know, and I'll try to post a quick video on that. Otherwise, we will do a quick tank update, and maybe we'll show you our newer frag tank and the anemone cube soon too. So until then, please like and subscribe. See you next time.